And welcome back to the Cloud Church. I'm Robert Breaker, missionary evangelist to the Spanish and English-speaking people. Today I've got a message prepared for you on who are the 144,000. That's a good question. Who are the 144,000? Now, what I want to say first, before we get started in this little Bible study, is what I'm about to show you, I do not teach as doctrine. I'm not dogmatic on this teaching. This is one of those things where I'm kind of, well, it could be this. So I'm not teaching this as something that you must believe. I say that as there are some people that take little doctrines and if you don't believe exactly like I do, then we can't have fellowship. This isn't one of those issues. This is just going through some verses and looking at who are these people, what does the Bible say about it. Years ago, a missionary in Mexico, we were sitting at his house talking around the table and this topic came up. Hey, who are the 144,000? And we said, hey, well, let's look up some verses and find out. And it was pretty interesting, some of the verses that we read and what they said. So I'm just going to present this to you kind of the way he presented this to me. And once again, not teaching this 100% as doctrine. But over the years, a lot of people have asked me, and I've showed them this, and they thought it was very interesting. So I hope this will be an interesting Bible study to you. We're just going to have fun. We're just going to enjoy ourselves and just look at the verses. And so let's get started here. But before we do, I just want to say one thing. Whenever you're reading through the New Testament, and it is a quote from something in the Old Testament, it is so important to look up that quote in the Old Testament. And I believe by the time we finish this little study, you'll see why I say that. So the 144,000, they're only mentioned twice in the Bible. The first mention is in Revelation chapter 7. And the second mention is in Revelation 14. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to read Revelation 7, and then second we're going to read Revelation 14. And we're going to try to come to an understanding of who are these 144,000. So Revelation chapter 7 and verse 1, I'm going to read from verse 1 to verse 8. So Revelation 7, 1 through 8. And after these things I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having a seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the children of Israel. Did you hear that? All the children of Israel. That's interesting that it says all the children of Israel. Wow. We will look at that in a minute. That's pretty interesting. So right there in verse 4, of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Now look, it tells us there were 12,000 of each tribe. So let's read it. Of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Asher were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Nephthalim were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Manasseh were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Simeon were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Levi were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Joseph were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. So there are 12 tribes of Israel, and there are 12,000 from each tribe. So who are the 144,000? They are Jews, according to the Bible. So who are the 144,000? Without a doubt, they're Jews from the tribe of Israel. Why would anybody set up a religion and then try to say that they're part of the tribes of Israel when they're not? So you got to be careful of false denominations that say they're something when the Bible shows clearly they can't be who they say they are. So now let's go to Revelation chapter 14. Okay, here show up the 144,000 again, and we read some more details about the 144,000. And here we read Revelation chapter 14, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. And as I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder, and I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. I love that verse. Harpers harping with their harps. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. These are they which are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. Do you hear that? They're virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. So these 144,000 Jews, we are told, are virgins. And there's 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The old denomination teaches you have to be one of the 144,000 to be saved. They are Jews, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes, who are virgins. Who are virgins. Let's go back to verse 4. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. Now, before I go any further, let me say this. If the 144,000 are Jewish virgins, exactly 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes, where are they today? You know how hard it would be to find 12,000 Jews from each of the 12 tribes? Most of the Jews I've met, many of them don't even know what tribe they're from. They know they're Jewish, but they can't tell you what tribe they're part of. And then it says, these were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits of God unto God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. So they're virgins, and they're called the first fruits. The first fruits. And we see a rather peculiar thing about these two. It says, in their mouth, no guile. And then it says they are without fault. Almost sounds like they are sinless, is what the Bible's trying to say. So two things about these 144,000. In their mouth, there's no guile, they're without fault. And then two other things, they're virgins, and they're the first fruits. They are called the first fruits. And the Bible tells us they follow the Lamb wheresoever he goeth. Who is the Lamb? Well, the Lamb is Jesus. John the Baptist declared unto us that the Lamb was Christ. So, first fruits, they are the first fruits. Who also is the first fruits? Does the Bible call anybody else first fruits? Well, yes, it does. Let's go look at that. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, and I want you to look at verse 20. 1 Corinthians 15:20 says, but now is Christ risen from the dead, and become the first fruits of them that slept. And verse 23, but every man in his own order, Christ the first fruits, and afterwards they that are his that is coming. How odd, because first fruits, why, that's a plural. That's more than one, but Jesus Christ is called the first fruits. How odd that Christ is called the first fruits with an S. Why isn't he called the first fruit? Because there's someone connected with Jesus Christ. Who is connected with Jesus and called the first fruits in the Bible? Well, it's the 144,000. So we have an interesting thing here. These 144,000 are called the first fruits, and Jesus Christ is also called the first fruits. So Matthew 2:13, and when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he rose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed unto Egypt. Okay, you know the story that Jesus was born, and he's born in Bethlehem, and they went to Jerusalem, and Herod found out about Jesus and wanted to know more. And in verse 15, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. And verse 16, then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he was diligently inquired of the wise men. Now you realize what you just read? He killed all the children that were in Bethlehem. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, real close to Jerusalem. But he says he didn't just kill all the children that were in Bethlehem, but all the coasts thereof. There's no coast next to Jerusalem or Bethlehem. In the Old Testament, God divided up Israel for all the 12 tribes. And the way God divided it up, he gave every one of them, I don't know if that's 12 or not, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all right, there you go, 12. 12 different tribes, and he gave them all access to the coast. So when the Bible says he killed all the babies and all the coasts thereof, then they must have killed all the babies of all 12 tribes of Israel. Does that make sense? Interesting. Now watch this. Watch this. Verse 17. Now watch this. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, In Ramah there was a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they are not. Jeremiah 31:15. Thus saith the Lord, a voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation and bitter weeping, Rahel weeping for her children, refused to be comforted for her children, because they were not. That's what we just read. We just read that in Matthew chapter 2, and the writer, Matthew, says this is what was spoken, what he did when Herod killed those babies. This was fulfilled the prophecy of Jeremiah 31:15. But now look at 31:16. This is where it gets a little scary. You go to Jeremiah 31:15, and it says, the exact quote from Matthew, and then it says, Thus saith the Lord, Refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears. For thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord, and they, who is they? The children, the babies that Herod killed, shall come again from the land of the enemy. And there's hope in thine end, saith the Lord, that thy children shall come again to their own border. I'm getting goosebumps. The same passage that was quoted in Matthew, that those children being killed, was this passage here. If you go and look at this passage, you find that the rest of the passage, God says, don't cry for those babies that were killed. He says, don't cry for those children that died. He said, they shall come again someday to their own border. Could it be? Could it be that at the end of the church age, when the rapture takes place, the rapture of the church and the tribulation takes place, that God brings these 144,000 babies back to life in the tribulation? Could that be? Is that far-fetched? Well, to some people it might be. But what do you do with the verses? Once more, let's recap. 144,000 are connected with Christ because they're called first fruits, and Jesus Christ is called first fruits. All the children that were the same age of Jesus, up to age 2, were murdered. Who shall declare his generation? They're dead. And guess what? Matthew 2 tells us that Rachel was weeping for her children, but then in the same passage, in the same prophecy, he says, don't weep for those dead children. They will come again to their own land and their own border. Whew. Does that mean these 144,000 were the children that Herod killed? Exactly 12,000 from each of the tribes of the 12 tribes of Israel? It's starting to look that way. It's kind of freaky, but it's starting to look like that. Isaiah 53, and we stopped reading in verse 8. Look at verse 8. He was taken from prison and from judgment. Who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. He was cut off. Jesus Christ was cut off. So the Bible's talking about Jesus. It says Jesus was cut off. This is important because we're going to see that word cut off here again in a little bit in the context of what appears to might be the 144,000. But look at the rest of verse 8. Out of the land of the living for the transgression of my people was he stricken. Verse 9. And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he did no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. This is talking about Jesus Christ. It says he did no violence, neither was there any deceit in his mouth. The 144,000 says in their mouth was no guile. Well, in this mouth, talking about Jesus, it says there's no deceit. That almost sounds like the same thing. And it says he's done no violence. That almost seems like without fault, no violence. It just seems like we just see more and more of a connection between Christ and his generation, those babies that Herod killed. Is there anything to that? Is there anything to that?